Hi everyone! Gotta get to the right chat. Welcome to today's stream where I didn't feel like playing a game today. So I'm not going to. Now, I am here to rant, ramble, rave, and complain, whatever I feel like, in regards to the isekai trope. And talk about things that are kind of isekai but not quite isekai. A couple, one or two that are actually both isekai and reverse isekai, depending on how you look at it. And just a couple of blunt reverse isekais. Who knows? During the ramblings, I might even get an idea for a little isekai style story. I really tend to think of a lot of stories. And if anyone ever uses some of the ideas that I have as a base for a story, just let me know. I want to see because it's not the idea behind a story, because there's only so many stories at their core, you know, and most of them kind of revolve around the main character's sense of self discovery or overcoming adversity or failing to overcome diversity, things like that. It's all about how you tell the story, not what the story actually is. At least that's my opinion. If you had, like, let's just take a story of a nice simple one about, you know what? Let's just go with a simple one, a romance story between a girl and a boy. Give them all three plot points. Um, like the first one could be they moved into town, so it's a new person. The second one could be a death in the family, and then the third plot point could be a separation and then rediscovery. Let's say, you could. Those are all plot points that gives you a nice little outline for a story. But if you give that same outline to 10 different authors, you're going to get 10 dramatically different stories. And RoboCop, I know of RoboCop, but I have never seen it. I know the basics of it. Police officer almost, you know, gets almost gets deleted. And he ends up being turned into like a machine guy, becomes a robot police officer, and is a lot more violent. But that's all I really specifically know about it. But anyway, let's get to the isekai trope. Now, for anyone that doesn't know what an isekai is, here is an overly simplified explanation. You live in the world. And then something happens. And now you're in the other world. And that's really all there is to it for what an isekai is at its core. Now, there's different sorts of isekais. Like, you might get one that's high fantasy, a lot of sparkles and magic fire bolts and stuff. You might get one that's kind of like a sci fi setting. You might get one that is like the normal setting, but it adds a little bit of flair. So you might end up with something like this, except instead of, let's say, a little red, instead of this little bit of dark smudge here, you get a red smudge here, and that could have caused some changes over time. But at its core, it's still the same world that you're used to. Now, I don't know anything about that game, so I can't say much about it. Now, when it comes to isekais, as far as I'm aware, there are three main ways for you to get isekai'd into another world. Now, a lot of them ends up with you getting, with a little gravestone, R.I.P. And that's just a very common trope when it comes to isekais. You kind of just game over, and congratulations, you are now in a new world. So, the three main ways, I'm not sure the best way to visualize reincarnation. So I will just, do it like this, a yin yang symbol, good enough. Now, this right here is way number one. You get a brand new life, completely born in that other world. So you get to start from scratch. Now, there are pros and cons to this. The pro is that you're an entirely new person and you get to start from scratch. Cons, you still have your brain, but you're in the baby, and your body isn't going to cooperate with you. And depending on the setting, you probably are not going to understand the language. Now, luckily, thanks to language immersion, I'm sure you'd figure out it pretty quickly. But it would be a big hassle because you are going to be quite articulate in your own brain, even if your little baby mouth is not going to be able to verbalize it. And let's say that you are able to verbalize it. They're not going to know what you're saying if you go like, "Mother, I would like to request some complex carbohydrates in a sweet and appealing manner." When their form of language is something like, it's just not going to work. You're going to have to figure out how to communicate. Now, possibility number two is person goes in from, that you used to be the brain part, wanders in to a new person whose body is no longer necessary for the original user, but you end up with the memories of the previous person and the new person. Meaning that you don't have to learn a bunch of stuff. But you also are kind of thrust into the deep end without any real preparation. The reincarnation method gives you plenty of time to prep, mentally prepare, and let's be honest, a lot of people, if they could go back to when they were like 5 and start over, but keep all of their memories that they have, they would be able to manage a lot. And even if they go into someone else's body, they'd still be able to manage a lot because they already know how to do a lot of planning. They've already gone through their adult growth, plan, and education and things like that. Especially if you go into a world where not everyone gets education. I mean, mathematics alone, I could picture, like, depending on the setting, there being like, okay, so you're interested in being a merchant, and here's a math test. And, it's basic stuff like, let's say you sold 37 blank for 8 coins each. How much money did you make? Well, we all know that it would be 56 for the 8 times 7. And we all know that it would be 24 with the extra 0 because of the 10 spot. So, a lot of people would be able to pretty quickly, even if they use like a piece of paper as a cheat sheet to, doodle on, they would know that that means the total sales would be 296. But, if they don't do proper education in that world, they might not have that for everyone. Now, the third way for people to be, brought into the other world is pretty simple. And it's not just the one way, but it's an all-encompassing term. It is the magical circle summoning. Now, it doesn't have to be a literal magical circle, but, it can be a circle of people. It can be a lot of things, but basically just, summoning magic of some sort. Or whether it be like a god or, some sort of mage group that is like, we're dealing with a demon lord, we really want to take care of that. That's about it, Now, those are the core ways to find yourself in an isekai as like a character. You either get reincarnated, you take over a body, or you get summoned in using your own body. Now, depending on the situation, any of these could be viable. They all got their pros and cons. Now, obviously, the reincarnation one, the cons kind of go away after the first few years where you're, able to communicate. This one, you kind of have another person's brain in your own. It does let you skip a lot of the initial embarrassment, but it also means that you're second guessing a lot of things yourself. I mean, think about it. I would say it's almost like having amnesia to the people that know you. I mean, I could picture a lot of stuff like, "Oh, you're blah blah blah, right?" "Yeah, I'm blah blah blah. What's this about?" People might get concerned about you. Plus, you're effectively possessing a corpse. Ew, that's just kind of gross. Now, some of them can kind of combine the reincarnation and the summoning circle by like aging you down, making you a more idealized version of yourself. If humans are a rarity, they could turn you into like something that's more common in this world. Like, imagine if they're like, all right, humans exist, but they're kind of very rare, they're kind of looked down upon. If you want, I could turn you into a dwarf, an elf, an orc, whatever. Just list things that are in the world. Hmm. And honestly, the big downfall of the summoning circle method is that a lot of people would know about you right away. It actually not always, because it's not always a literal summoning circle. It could be like a god snatching you up and flinging you into the other world for whatever reason. So, but you also at that time don't really. Basically, there's a good chance you would stand out if it's just summoning circle. Because let's be honest, back a lot of times, a lot of these that are fantasy, I imagine most people don't go more than 5 or 10 miles from where they're born, unless they're like traveling merchants or soldiers or things like that. Kind of like the Hobbit. Um, I I think it was in the Hobbit book. Bilbo said something like, "This will be the official furthest I've ever been from home," and it's like, what, half a day's travel or something? Hmm. I mean, most people probably didn't travel too far. That way they could, like, go hunting and still be home in time to butcher it and, things like that. Hmm. Now, yeah, I'm not sure which of those I would completely prefer. If I could, it depends on the form of summoning, I suppose. But those are the main ways to get brought into another world. Anyway. Obviously, there are a lot of isekai mangas, animes, stories, web novels, movies, etc. And it's not all just the Japanese stuff. There are a lot of American isekais. You just might not realize that they're isekais. Nice one, Lunaticus. Yeah, Truck Kun is the reason why a lot of people get the RIP. But yeah, actually, that reminds me. I am going to pull up something. Hmm, let's see, where is it? All right, all right. All right. Just got to. Okay, come on. All right. Hmm. Why is it when you are looking for something I don't. This is, let's see, in channel. There is not a way for me to find this. Is there? Search options. I why am I is it because I'm there's gotta be a you know what? I'm gonna try a different. Why is it that I'm okay? It's bugging me, and that's why I'm going further than. All right. Go in here. Search. No! No, no. Oh, there we go. I think I figured it out. I don't. All right. Let me try it again. All right. Hmm. Nope. Nope. All right. I guess I'm gonna have to do it the weird way, but at least I'll be able to find it. So here we go. Let's see. Copy that. Post it to myself. And there we go. Is it because I'm streaming and that's put some weird limits on things? I don't know. Whatever. I got it. Copy image. New. Paste. And then here we go. I Hey, you there, bro. It's isekai time. Yeah, that is a different truck-kun. It's a more aggressive truck-kun. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all I wanted to show you. Mm-hmm. But yeah, truck-kun is a very common trope. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Obviously, yeah. But from there, you need to think about a little bit about what sort of isekai is it going to be? Because there is a lot of isekais. Are you going to be dealing with a, you know, I'm not the best, I'm not good at art, so obviously everything is going to be overly simplified visually. But are you going to deal with a demon lord? Are you going to deal with just a, you know, generic war? Lots of swords that clash. Mhm. Correct. Hmm. I forget the name of the manga, but I do remember reading a little manga once where there was actually a company that did the truck isekai. Like they would get commissions from other worlds, and other worlds would be like, this is the sort of hero we want, blah, blah, blah. Can you send them to us? Here's the timetable. Here's what we're willing to pay. And obviously, they would provide like goods instead of money because otherworldly money wouldn't necessarily be worth much here. It's like, we will give you 5 pounds of solid gold. We will give you um, these ancient paintings. We will give you all of these rare and valuable this or that. And yeah. So they would have to set up like traps to lure the right isekai candidate to the thing. And like they had a special isekai bumper instead of a whole truck. So like if their truck got broken down, they could go and isekai people with their personal car instead by swapping out the bumper. And yeah, now another one is another common one is where why did I? It's all right. Instead of some big thing, it's kind of like just living life. There's no special reason behind the summoning. There's no war, there's no demon lord, there's no outbreaks, any of that. Mm-hmm. Now, here's the thing there has to be a reason, though, why you were summoned. So, for this sort, a lot of it is kind of like, oh, yeah, so we know that you died. There's your gravestone, or there's where your um, cremation happened, whatever. But the thing about that is you weren't actually supposed to die yet. Sorry. But it's kind of too late for us to send you back. And you have another, let's see, 53 years, 2 months, 18 days, 4 hours, 17 minutes, and 12 seconds that you were supposed to live. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case. So, what I'll do for you instead is I will send you to another world, and I'll even give you a little bit of a blessing. But there's also the type that's, like, oh yeah, you got summoned to another world? Well, that's that's nice, but yeah, we got no clue why you got summoned. Nobody tells you. You don't know. 1 minute you're home, the next minute you're somewhere else. Maybe you stepped onto a magical circle, like the Bermuda Triangle. Although saying that out loud is kind of dumb, of me, because the the Bermuda Triangle is not a circle. But you know what I mean. Hmm. Not able to move those question marks. Well, whatever. I'll just get rid of them and draw them anew. But you know what you get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Actually, hold on. There we go. Thank you for the bitty spard. But yeah, sometimes you get isekai and you have no clue why. It's like, is there a reason that I got sent here? Is it all random coincidence? And there are a lot of different isekai stories. Now, before we get into it, there is going to be something that some people will say is an isekai, but I do not consider it one. I consider it isekai adjacent. And yeah, Bard, I am doing fine. In fact, I finally sat down and did all of the emote stuff, And I have decided that it is time for me to actually go in to replace slash upgrade a couple of emotes. Have I been not talking for a while? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hmm. Yeah, I just realized that myself. I was going into an explanation, okay, about what emotes I'm going to get rid of, which ones I'm keeping, things like that. And these two right here are going to be updated, a normal head pat, and a rave. Mhm. Then the next three I am going to completely get rid of. Hmm. I mean, the first two are kind of obvious. I have the normal heart, and I got the normal, like, crying. And the chibi one, you can barely tell it moves when it's small. Now, I'm actually, because of the fact that two people have unlocked the 5,000 bit emote, but I don't have an emote, that means that one of the stills are gonna be for that. Now, I'm also gonna get rid of this and this, although that the second one is because of the fact that if I'm upgrading the animated version, I don't need both an animated and a still version of the rave. Hmm. And honestly, this one I'm a little torn on if I want to get rid of or not. The little yippee. I don't think anybody uses it very much. And I don't know. It's just a thought. So at a minimum, I I'm gonna order 3 new animated, 3 unanimated, and update 2 of them to be animated. So yeah, that is the plans for the emotes. So if anyone has like ideas or suggestions for some emotes, I am totally open because I am very unsure of what I want. There are so many amazing emote types out there after all. So if you got any ideas or suggestions, feel free to put them in the suggestion channel in the Discord. And yeah. Anyway. So let's go over. I was about to go over something that I don't consider an isekai, but other people might. Mhm. I kind of consider it isekai adjacent. So it's like, oh, here's a line, here's a line. They're very close. Actually, these are like isekai, non isekai. And this is like what I'm about to talk about. It's very close to isekai compared to non isekai, but it's still not quite isekai. And I can understand the argument that people make to say that it should be an isekai, but I don't think where you are trapped in a video game should count because you are not fully in the video game, like Sword Art Online and Dot Hack. Your mind is trapped in the game, but your body is still in the physical world. In fact, your mind is still in the physical world, it just can't interact with it. Now, from a perception standpoint, I definitely understand why the people that are experiencing it would think that it's an isekai at that point. But I don't think it's an isekai. Mm-mm. I mean, because they are still in their normal world. So because of that, I don't consider it isekai. It's isekai adjacent, Much like I got my own definition of a sport, and there are things that are similar to sports, but they're athletic competitions without being sports. Because for me, a sport has to be athletic in nature, competitive in nature, and the other people, players, participants, have to have a direct physical impact on what you do. Mhm. Which means, things like football, basketball, hockey, soccer, all of that is a sport. But things like track and field, bowling, golf are not sports. They might be athletic, they might be competitive, but because you could literally do it all on your own, separate from everyone else, and still have it be competitive, I don't consider it a sport. It's an athletic competition, but it's not a sport. Much in the same way, I don't consider trapped in a video game to be the same as an isekai. Now, if you actually get reincarnated into the game or something, that is entirely different. That means you just get reborn, reincarnated, summoned, whatever, into the video game world. And if you think about it, a lot of like comic book characters from like Marvel and the whatnot get isekai'd all the time by going into other comic book worlds. I mean, I don't know too much about this comic. I know it exists and whatnot, but let me see if I can pull up a piece of art for what I'm talking about. Let's see. Here we go. Um, copy image. I just want the image. I don't need the whole thing. All right, this works. Copy image. Mhm. New, new. Here we go. Invincible goes to Marvel Universe. Mhm. That, as far as Invincible is concerned, is an isekai. Mhm. And as far as Spider-Man's concerned, it's a reverse isekai. Because someone from another world went to their world. But yeah. So even though most of the stories go from A to B, sometimes they can go from B to A. And I know of two of those reverse isekais off the top of my head. The first one is The Devil is a Part Timer. And the second one is, I might be a little off on the title, but Jay Won't Be Discouraged. And both of them are basically about strong evil people that end up on Earth and lose their like strong evil powers and are trying to rebuild. There's another one, I don't know the most about it, I just know it exists. And like fantasy races are going to Earth. And some of them are having a hard time going back because the food is so like calorie rich that they get big. And they don't want to go home until they lose weight because apparently it's too embarrassing in their world or something. I mean, I don't care if it's like high calorie or not. if you go to somewhere and you don't know what it's like, but there's a lot of food that you've never had before, as long as you do not instantly hate it, you're probably going to eat a lot of it just to try it. I mean, think about it. If you spent your entire life until you were, let's say, 20, eating nothing but, bread, rice, and boiled vegetables, that sort of thing, and then you go out into the rest of the world after you turn 20, and you let's say something that's not too outlandish. Let's say that you tried a BLT. Yeah. You've never had bacon before, and you've never had a sandwich before. You've had bread, but you've never had a sandwich, much less if you put mayonnaise or mustard on the BLT. I personally only just put some mayonnaise on it. I toast the bread, put the BLT together, and, that's it for me. And I know some people even put cheese on their BLT. Those changes would be dramatic. Even if it's not over the top amazing, it would be different enough for you to want to try more. And as a result, you want to try everything that you can. Mm-hmm. I mean, just imagine about the stuff like actually even toast or fried rice or rice balls with like pickled plums. And those are still using things that you're used to. Once you get to the stuff that you're not used to, you know, like ice cream or cheesecake or okay, pizza does have crust, but you're not used to that because of bread. Or tacos, or well, tacos would still have veggies, but you know what I'm trying to say. The further away from what you're used to you get, as long as it is tasty and enjoyable, you're going to indulge. Mhm. Now, on the other side, if you don't like it, it might be a little painful to try keep eating, but you gotta eat. Now, there are two stories I can think of where, you know, World A and World B, they are kind of, connected to each other in a sense, but they're not directly touching in the normal sense either. You know, World A and World B. I I was about to do World A and World A. But you got to deal with certain things. And there are two stories I can think of where people from both worlds have gone to each other's world. And in both cases, they went back. The first one is Space Jam. Yep. And this is like multi-dimensional or multi-world or whatever because Michael Jordan went to the Looney Tunes world and, spent time there. The aliens went to the Looney Tunes world and the human world. Luminous, if you wouldn't mind banning that person. Mm-hmm. Thank you much. And, they also go to the human world in order to steal the basketball players' talents. And I know some people have said that the Monstars wouldn't have been that good of a basketball team. I'll actually touch on that in a moment. But Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck go to the human world to get Michael Jordan's lucky shoes or whatever it was. I don't remember. So they are able to travel between the two, they just don't. So the two worlds are, there, but they're not there. They don't directly touch each other, but they kind of do. So, yeah. And the second one is. Oh, okay. There we go. And the second one is Digimon. Digimon is another two-way isekai. I've actually been watching the first season of it again. And I'm just to the part where Taichi and Agumon, or the unevolved form of Agumon, have gone to the human world. And I know that they all go back to the human world later, but obviously the Digidestined go to the digital world. They spend their time there, they do their thing, they become friends, their Digimon digivolve, things like that. But at one point they go home and the Digimon come with them. It's a two-way isekai street. Yeah. I've been considering trying one of the Digimon games, actually. But yeah. Now, a lot of people, like I said, apparently don't think that the Monstars would have been a great team. And here's the thing. I got two things to say. First off, outside of Michael Jordan, was the Toon Squad an especially good team? And that is their opponent. Now, the Toon Squad had Michael Jordan, and that was their only real professional baller. Whereas the Monstars had the talent of 5 professionals, plus monster alien strength on top of that. Now, sure, it might be the case where if you look at the positions of the people they took the talents from, it might not be a balance of positions. Or the positions of the people who the Monstars stole their powers from. Let's see if I can get that. They had two power forwards, 2 centers, and a point guard. Sean Bradley and Patrick Ewing were centers. Charles Barkley and Larry Johnson were power forwards. And Muggsy Bourgeois, I'm not good with names, was a point guard. Now, and as far as what are the basketball positions, it looks like they are missing a center and a small forward. But here's the thing. The people that say the Monstars weren't a good team are thinking against other equal, qualifications. Sure, in a professional format, you want to have the entire spectrum of positions. But when it comes to the Monstars, they were not playing against professional ballers. They were playing against the Looney Tunes. They were playing against people that didn't have a massive amount of talent. Now, I would say a more apt comparison would be, how would Michael Jordan with 4 random high school freshmen do against that team of 5 basketballers? Sure, it might not be the most balanced, but because of everything going on, it's more than a good team. It is a very good team. So yeah, I just wanted to let that out. Now, for Digimon, I I'm gonna say, when it comes to Digimon here, that I just think it's a good example of a two-way isekai. And I am considering getting one of the Digimon games. Now, I'm not considering it enough for when it's on normal price, because the normal price Digimon are like $60, and I want to give it a legitimate chance. So it has to be one that's on sale. So I'm actually considering getting Digimon World Next Order, because it is on sale right now for 84% off. Now, and it's not that old of a game either. It's from like 2.5 years ago. And I just think that I might get myself that game and give it a shot. Because I've played Pokemon like forever. In fact, I got most of those old Pokemon games. And yeah. Anyway. Getting back to this. Interesting. All right. So, let's talk about some isekai tropes. Now, isekai tropes, there are a lot of them. Some good, some bad, some kind of indifferent. And, you know, so let's just talk about what I think is the most common isekai trope that exists in all of isekais. I think the most common is an OP power. Yeah. Now, here's the thing. A lot of powers that don't even seem OP, if they're creative, could be overpowered. Like, let's take something like storage. Let's say that you have the ability to store stuff away, and, not just like a generic bag of holding, but like, let's say that you got a deck of playing cards and you can store one item in each of the cards. And you can just pop it in and out whenever you feel like it. Well, that would be very useful for a lot of things. And if you're creative, it could be overpowered. Now, let's assume that you can store things that only are not that are not someone else's property unless they give you permission, and you can only store it if it's within a certain range of you, and you can only summon it within a certain range of you too. Let's say that you can only summon something within, I don't know, let's say 5 feet of you, and you can only store it away within 15 feet of you. So, not only would that allow you a lot of chances for armor changing instantly or weapon swapping, but it would allow you to do certain tactical attacks that you would not be able to do normally. Like using a projectile weapon like a throwing knife or a spear as a feint. You could literally throw it and then store it right back in the card before resummoning it. You can mix and match your throwing attacks so they don't know which ones you're going to make vanish, or, let keep going. You could also, be like a top tier smuggler. Mm-hmm. Even if you put restrictions on like nothing that's alive on it, you could still do a lot of stuff. You know, like we're trying to sneak this medicine by. You could store an entire like cart in one, because if it's one item per card, what constitutes an item? It would have to be like based on the person's perception. So just imagine that. All right, I got a cart in this one. I got 5 barrels in these 5 cards. And because I consider them, because I was never told they're full of stuff, the contents of them are put in there. I got this card that's just full of a barrel's worth of oil, and it's just the oil. So if I'm running away, I can literally just drop the oil behind me, and then I can drop this lit torch because I stored it when it was lit, and drop both at the same time behind you, and that's one way to deal with your pursuers. And then there's stuff like, you get some overpowered magic, overpowered healing, overpowered strength. You could be a master puppeteer where you can literally control things. You could read minds. You could make potions that cure any illness, or do basically anything that you can imagine. And honestly, one overpowered power a lot of like the summon types get that people don't realize is your automatic translation power. I mean, think about it. You're summoned to an entirely other world, and you instantly know and speak the language. Depending on how that's done, that could be amazing. What if it's not so much that you understand the language, but the heart of the words put themselves into you? So you hear any word and you just know what it means, and you express the word in a way that automatically radiates. You could be like an ultimate verbal translator. Yeah. Now, let us think about another thing with it when it comes to language, and let's do it with Japanese, because I am working on learning Japanese. So, why not? But let us go with let's go with you know let's go with the word small. Now, it might not be perfect with the strokes, but this small. And if the magic only lets you understand the verbal components, I do imagine it would make learning the other parts very hard, especially because you could not get it the proper way. Mhm, mhm. So if someone's reading something to you, they would just read this as small out loud. You would hear them say small. Or if they do it in the alphabet instead, then it would look like this, but they would just still say the word small. Mhm. I mean, think about that. If they try to teach you to read, that would be a lot harder because they would point to this and they would just say small, small. And it wouldn't make sense to you. You would have to memorize that that means small, which is fine. But they also got an alphabet form. So if you see it in the alphabet form, or they are teaching you the alphabet form, this is the same word, small. Mm-hmm. But in Japanese, this is chi sai. Chi I sa I. So now you might be able to get taught the letters separately. So let's assume that they do manage to teach you the alphabet. Chi I sai I. Now, when it comes to that, but then, so they go chi I sai I, and then they're like, and when you read it all together, it's pronounced small. And you're saying it out loud as chisai, but you're not hearing it as chisai, you're hearing it as small. So, because of your auto translation magic or whatever is making you learn the local tongue, you are going to have a hard time with the writing. Because you would not get it. Because taking this alphabet here, there's another word that we can spell out. E. Chi. Right here. Which is the word for one. So you would see chi sai, small, I chi, one. And it wouldn't make sense to you because they, even though they have the same sounds in the alphabet, they would not have the same sounds audibly speaking to you. And thank you, Luminous, for the wishes of well luck. So yeah, I think if you automatically know the verbal language, but you don't also automatically know the written language via whatever magic lets you know the local language, it is going to be dramatically over the top more difficult to learn the written language. And it might be easier to just, pay someone locally that understands the language to read things to you. Like, hey, can you read? I'm going to rent you to read for me for like an hour, things like that. But at the same time, if the language is not limited to just the one from the locals, imagine instantly and automatically being able to speak and communicate with elves and dwarfs and humans and dragonborns and tieflings and gnomes and goblins, knowing every proper language instantly. Mm-hmm. I mean, it just it's just a thing. Now, oh, all right. Now another one that is fairly common, another trope, is the main character, usually a guy in these cases, ends up with not just one girl, but a lot of girls. Oh, for a harem. And sometimes they might get like cat ears or a tail, or they might be really big here, or they might actually have like horns. But the main character ends up with a harem. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's a harem that he bought or something, and I think it would be fun to kind of have a isekai story where the person is kind of like, okay, slaves are a thing here. That's really creepy. I can afford to buy three, so I'm buying you, and now I'm freeing you. Get out of here. And then that could come to be something that saves their life later, you know? Because those slaves could make something of themselves. Because let's be honest, a lot of isekai people just easily seem to adjust to the slavery being a thing. Now, in the story for Rising of the Shield Hero, he kind of had to, in a sense, and it doesn't mean he liked it. I don't, at least I don't remember him liking it, but yeah. Anyway, harems, yeah. And then another one is going from, a world with magic and whatnot, and the person that's suddenly in that world just knows enough stuff about modern technology to dramatically change things like cars or, whatever else. But let's be honest with ourselves. If you were to randomly get sucked into another world, how many people would realistically just randomly know the full functions in order to be able to actually teach people how to make things? Even something that's not so outlandish, like, say, a water pump, you know? it's not exactly a simple thing. I mean, a lot of people just kind of assume it's simple because it's common, but how many of us could really just go to a complete other world and explain properly in a way that it could be replicated how to do it? Now, certain things, sure, some people might be able to do, like, you know, copper. Mhm. Plus copper plus tin equals bronze. Mhm. And that's assuming they haven't already figured it out yet. And this one I'm only saying because a lot of video games kind of have that. And things like iron plus coal equals steel, you know. But anyway, you don't know the proper percentages for like how much copper to how much tin. You don't know the ratios. You don't know the heating. You don't know the cooldown periods. You don't know stuff like that. And as far as a computer, I mean, we just electrify a rock into thinking that it can think. I mean, and it, okay, maybe not literally. Obviously, it's more than that. But we manipulate nature in order to localize and manipulate electricity. And for people that don't know what electricity is, that's lightning. Lightning is electricity. That would be the first thing to try to explain to someone. Then, how to conduct electricity, how to create it, how to converse it. Now, certain things, even if you don't get it proper, like fully, I do think you could explain. Like a water wheel. You know, a water wheel. You know, you put the little thing here, you got a wheel, you got the little lines in here to let it rotate. And if you're trying to like make a water thing that'll give you water, basically you get like bucket shaped like rectangles or something. So the part that is underwater, you know, like, uh, well, kind of like this, you know, except obviously it would be shaped a little different, ratios, whatever. The water goes in here, it goes under, and then it raises up. And then you would have some sort of a thing about here. So that way the water can dump into it, and then it goes down a ramp towards where you want it, all while using the river as the manpower instead of the men. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, yeah. Now, let's talk about, after that, the contrast of the overpowered powers is the underdog. Now, those ones are like yin and yang, where a person has a garbage power type thing, and he just has to figure out how to make it useful. Like, you know, let's say that you're in a bus and the bus goes through a cave and the cave turns out to be like a Bermuda Triangle thing, and all of these people get cool and amazing powers, and yours is, you know, oh, so it turns out that my power isn't cool like your guys's, you know? I can't do this, I can't do that. I don't even really think that there's much to it. Apparently, I can I can make my nails grow like extra long. That doesn't sound that impressive, but it turns out that not just length, you can manipulate their density and you can retract them. So, kind of like I think it was Geen from Bleach, you can just kind of launch your fingernails super far and skewer people by making them harder. You know, it, it's it's a power I thought of off the top of my head. Forgive me if it's weird and or stupid, but you know, pew! Or maybe you can even launch them off like bullets eventually. But by making them grow denser instead of longer, and then you know, shooting them out and making them extremely brittle at one point to I don't know. I'm just trying to think of how a weird dumb power could be useful. And yeah, that's just kind of what I came up with. So, yeah. Now, there are a lot of isekais out there. I already went over a couple of them with Digimon and Space Jam and the reverse ones. The devil is a part timer and Jay won't be disappointed or discouraged or whatever the title is, you know. But there are a lot of different ones out there. And I love it when they take a different look at certain things. Like, so some of these I'm probably gonna get the titles wrong. But so what? So what? So what? So what? I don't care if I get them wrong. If I get them wrong, too bad. It's no big deal. Mm-hmm. Now, first off, um, this one I actually read as a web novel at one point. Ah! Hi, Grillo. Ah! Hi, Ken Grillo. All right, I forget. I forget which one I was going to talk about. Oh, okay, I got a different one. Okay, this one actually shows the aftermath of an isekai. This person was summoned to another world, and then he got sent back to the real world where he was found, put in a hospital, and you know, woke up in Earth and was speaking the other world's language. Now, it's something along the lines of my uncle, the isekai returner, or something like that, where this uncle spent a long time in another world, and now he's in this world again. And he still has a lot of his cool isekai powers, and he's getting used to the changes in the world because time still went by. And he's like using his magic to make YouTube videos, but people think it's fake. He's really upset about Sega no longer existing because he was a big Sega fanboy and things like that. And he's constantly telling stories and using magic to show how things were in the isekai world, you know? But yeah, I kind of liked that one where instead of showing directly what's happening, you know that all of this is already done. And now he's back in Earth. And yeah. Um, he basically, because Sega doesn't have consoles anymore, he was really disappointed. Or maybe it was a Sega specific game. He was a big Sega fanboy. He was sure they were going to beat Nintendo or something like that. But yeah, um, I don't remember too much about that one, but I do remember that in one chapter he shows off transformation magic and he turns himself into a cute elf girl. And he does basically some live let's play as the elf cute girl. And that is their best stream that they've done. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Basically, they just assume it's a really good like VTuber, but it's nope, it's just him using magic to look like a cute little elf. And now another one that honestly, I'm not going to say this one's great by any standards, but I will say that it is better than I expected. And I expected it to be complete and utter garbage based on the title. Instead, it's just kind of mediocre in my mind. But when you expect complete and utter garbage and you get adequate, it seems a lot better than what you were thinking. Now, again, I might get it a little wrong, but the title is something along the lines of I was reborn in another world as a vending machine. And yeah, this guy just loved vending machines so much that when he saw one about to fall over, he put his body to, stop it from falling over. And it crushed him until he was gone. So he was reborn in another world. Hmm. Yeah. And honestly, it is way better than I expected. It's enjoyable enough. I'm not saying it's top tier, but I am saying it's enjoyable. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And when you expect something to be complete and utter trash, and instead it's enjoyable, you just got a whole different perspective. And I love one thing that they did. Because in this story, he charges a silver coin for most of his things and like 2 silver coins for some of his better things. So at one point, because all of the silver coins are going into him, they're not going into circulation anymore. He is converting it into points so he can like maintain his life, upgrade his body, things like that. So eventually someone comes and wants to buy, the silver coins from him. But as far as he knows, he doesn't have any money in him. So, what one person suggests is, you know what? What if we pay with a gold coin and see if we can get some silver back? So, the person pays with the coin, and out comes so many silver coins that they can put back into circulation, all at the cost of 1 coin. Because, it just makes sense. Especially in this setting where, much like a lot of like the old time stuff before transport was, especially good, a lot of people do not go very far from where they live. And I got to learn a few things about like odd vending machines. And at one point, he prevents someone from getting a hard R on them by turning into a sort of vending machine that provides, and he, drops them for free, some 18 up magazines. Yeah. And they don't have that sort of stuff in this world. So that's good enough for the people, and yeah. Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I'm not gonna spoil it too much, but he prevents someone from the vending machine, prevents a hard R by giving the bandits who kidnapped him and this lady some 18 up magazines. Yeah. And it just it's kind of interesting to see some of the, different vending machines out there. They got the stereotypical food and drink ones. They got the oxygen tank one. They got the portable toilet dispenser one. Apparently, that's a vending machine type thing for like emergency services. Mhm. They got helium. They got dry ice. They got water. And mm, yeah, it's just a fun one, you know. Not everything has to be like Shakespeare in order to be enjoyed. Sometimes you just want to have like fast food storytelling. I don't think this is quite fast food storytelling, but it's definitely not fine dining either. Now, another one, let's see. Um, oh, farming in another world. This guy just gets, he wants to live a normal, uh, actually, how do I explain that? The guy just gets like an ultimate farming tool, and because of the fact he can make really good food and whatnot in a like demon forest and whatnot, it's able to like do a lot of things. And he kind of ends up adopting like demon wolves and demon spiders. And because he's got all these powerful wild animals under his command, like no one really wants to fight with him because he's got all of these powerful things. And he ends up getting so many things, so many people moving into his village. And let's just say that um, his harem is basically gets to the size of like a whole army because he's the only guy there. And it turns out to always be women showing up. I haven't read too far into this one, but at one point he's like, you know what? I'll take some of your girls, sure, 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 on the condition that you give me some guys too. I demand you send me guys. I've been the only guy here too much. It's too exhausting. And they do send some guys, but they're kids who are boys, so they can't take that pressure off of him yet. Now, some isekais also have like the video game system built in. Like this one, I'm probably a little off on this title, but So I'm a Spider, so what? Where, she gets reborn as a newborn spider. And she's got to survive as a spider in basically a monster dungeon. She's got to figure out spider abilities, level ups, evolution tactics. Because, like in Digimon, when she gets to a certain spot, she can choose which path to take for her evolutionary scale. And she deals with, lizards and wasps, and eventually deals with, like, monkeys and dragons, and people even. And even her own mom. Yeah. So, and her main goal right now is to basically become a spider tour. Like a centaur, except the lower half is a spider. That way she can try to look human enough to, like, talk to people and figure out what's going on. I like the weird stories, honestly. And this next one is actually one of my favorites. And I used this idea to an extent in one of my D&D sessions, stories. Restaurant to Another World. Now, this is more of a reverse isekai because it's the people that come to them from the other world, and it's not them going to the other world. The other world people are his customers. Mm-hmm. Oh, I might have to refill my water soon. But the way it works is on Saturday every week, a bunch of doors open up around this other world. And people can just kind of walk in. And it's a restaurant. Mm-hmm. And, he just deals with it. He's got all sorts of customers. Early on, he gets a little demon girl as a waitress, things like that. And there's a lot of interactions. My favorite story is actually the lizard guys. See, most of the customers keep this a whole secret. Because they want this to be their thing. They don't want to risk someone else trying to take their door. I'm not sure if this is me thinking about something that hasn't been specified, but I think the door can only be opened for customers to enter once a day per door. And then it vanishes when those customers leave. Because they all go, there's, tons and tons of doors. And this is the main door up here, the big one. But there are all of these other doors around that world that connect to it. And you leave through the same door that you entered, but they all connect to the same door. Now, I did something like this in a D&D game, except instead of another world, it was more of a pocket dimension, kind of like a big bag of holding. Mm-hmm. Where the owner, once a week could have customers come in, serve them, buy things, sell things, things like that. Yes, they still gotta pay. And the owner uses the foreign money with this one guy who is a merchant on the smaller door side in order to get stuff, mostly like foods and whatnot, to try different styles of cooking, to see what their customers would like. So, yeah, I suppose he might keep a little bit of it, but, you know. Hmm. But, yeah. And he ends up getting two employees from the other side who basically show up first thing in the morning and then work all day, get a few employee meals, and then leave. One of them eats a lot because she's actually a dragon, so her payment is just the food because she lives on and her door is actually on the moon. And the other one, well, she's a demon, and demons kind of caused a war, and in the after effects, it's hard for her to get a job. So, yeah. In one chapter, she was given leftovers for the next day, and she eats the rice ball that's wrapped up in the aluminum foil, and she cleans it and hangs it up like laundry because she wants to keep it. So cute. But my favorite story is actually the lizard guy one, because while most customers keep their doors secret, the lizard community treats it as a whole ritual. Once a year, they have a contest, a championship tournament, and the person who is deemed the community's champion gets to go through that door. And they get to eat their fill of, I think it's omelet rice or just omelets in general with whatever filling. They get to eat their fill, and then after they're done and they pay, they get oversized omelets to go that the rest of the community eats by taking, cutting it up into little parts and sharing it. So the champion gets to indulge as to their heart's content alone in the restaurant while everyone else shares it as a community strengthening event. But the champion cannot have any of the omelet that they bring back. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my favorite chapter in the whole one. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now it's possible I'll get a new favorite because there's still more chapters coming out, I think. But I think the title is something along the lines of Restaurant in Another World. So yeah. But I also like the idea of someone who is like an over the top fanatic about one specific thing and is able to bring it to the other world. Ascension of a Bookworm or something like that for the title. She doesn't care about anything except trying to get books. She fanatically, while her dad is at work, bugs other people to learn how to read. She sees a book and finds out that it's something she might never get to touch. Yeah, because basically in her world, she constantly read books. She constantly had new books, read books. It didn't matter what it was. She would read fantasy, she would read bibliography, she would even read instruction manuals. She was happiest reading. She would read anything and everything. And in this world, all she cares about is getting more books, reading books, getting books more readily accessible. And well, when she first sees a book, she asks if she can hold it, open it, smell it. But this person has it in a like secure container so people can't touch it. Because, well, it's extremely rare and valuable. Basically, this nobleman paid this merchant with the book. Ah, thank you for gifting out a sub, Bard. But yeah, I'll bring up a quick picture. Ah! Thank you for the bitties. But yeah, I'll bring up a quick little picture of it. Let's see, new, paste. Ascension of a bookworm. The only thing she cares about is books. And everything that she does is in her goal to get more books. She teaches how to make paper. She teaches how to do like picture books. A hype train. Guys. Thank you for the hype train. Let's see if we can get it to level 2. But yeah, yep, if you look at the title, it says it's Ascendance of a Bookworm, not Ascension. I'll do anything to become a librarian. If there aren't any books, I'll just have to make some. And look, just so much. I mean, she even goes to the point of like becoming a priestess just so she can read the church's religious text. She locks herself in a room and lets the whole day pass her by while reading. And it's a very fun one, honestly. I really should get a new picture for the hype train icon. Huh. You know, now that I think about it, this emote would be probably pretty good for the starting of the hype train. Hype, 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 hype. But yeah, and it totally makes sense that this character would know random stuff, you know, because if she's constantly reading before her like rebirth, she would know a lot of random stuff. Ah! Thank you for the goodies. Ah! Oh, that shook some cobwebs loose. Yeah. That definitely shook some cobwebs loose. Thank you, Grillo. You know, before the end of the year, I am going to order those new emotes. That is my plan. And I'm also going I got a plan to get some personalized starter music, although I'm not sure when. The musical person is is um is um is a college student, so they're in school, but it's the person that made music for this game here, and it's not that expensive, but I just want to be able to have something that's just mine. Every little bit makes me feel a little bit more like I'm doing things for real, I guess. I mean, I know objectively speaking, I have been a real VTuber since day one, but certain things just, it kind of feels better. And honestly, that's a cute little game. I beat it on stream. It was fun. A nice little platformer. Anyway, we're about to hit commercials, and I need to refill my water. So we're actually gonna do. I'm actually gonna pause it for commercials this time. And yeah. All right. So if someone wants to hit exclamation break, and yeah, see you all in just a couple minutes. Be right back. Love you. We're back, we're back, we're back. Now, I will say that there is one thing in a lot of isekais, and I'm not sure if it's just me thinking, but there seems to be kind of two ways about it. And World A is the home world, and World B is the new world, you know? But no matter what, they go to World B. The question is, how many of them just end up staying in World B versus how many return to World A at some point? And how many of them don't even want to go to World A? Again, like, they get a chance, but nope. I'll stay here. I mean, depending on a person's life, depending on the person's life, and depending on the after effects of the isekai world, I could see either one being viable. Like, let's say that you are a I don't know Angel Beats off the top of my head. Let me look it up real quick. Alright, Angel Beats. I know Fushigi Yugi is one where it's kind of isekai in repetition, where they go into the story and out over and over. And Inuyasha is a time travel one, so that one I wouldn't give isekai. It's another isekai adjacent, but it's more time travel. Alright, plot. Environment of a high school in the afterlife. A sort of limbo. Okay, so this is so Angel Beats is in a limbo state before going to the afterlife. Now, afterlife is a normal part of life because you got life itself and then you got afterlife. Now, at least in this story, because afterlife is a part of life. Now, being stuck in a limbo to work past your trauma, based on that little bit, I would say it is isekai adjacent because limbo is not a normal state, but due to the fact that they have an entire system in place and it's just kind of in between life and afterlife, then I kind of feel like, based on the quickie description I found, it's isekai adjacent, but not a complete isekai. Yeah. And I just thought of something silly. That cartoon, Fairly Odd Parents, the fairies going to Earth is a reverse isekai, but when Timmy goes to the isekai world, when Timmy goes to the fairy world, he's isekaiing. So Timmy is Fairly Odd Parents has isekai tropes without being a full isekai story. Yeah. yeah, certain things are like close, but not quite. Mhm. Even if you can't explain things properly. But yeah. What? What, Grillo? What? Mhm. Meanwhile, Danny Phantom is not an isekai because it's in the same world. Although I don't really know too much about it because I've never watched it. I just know bits and pieces. So, from what little bit I know, it's not an isekai. Oh, you were reacting to Bard. I thought you were overreacting about the comment of Fairly Odd Parents. Although the Fairly Odd Parents Jimmy Neutron Power Hour, they isekai to each other. It was a two-way isekai movie. Because they both went to entirely different worlds with entirely different art styles. Hmm. Oh, you were reacting to me. Okay, okay, okay. Hmm. But yeah, I haven't seen Danny Phantom before. There's a lot of stuff that's popular I haven't seen. A lot of the time, I just kind of watch whatever the researchers leave behind. Not too long ago, they left behind some of a show called The Office and Seinfeld, saying that I should watch those because those are like classic Americana things. But they got some weird taste sometimes, so I don't know. One of them is apparently a show about nothing, and I don't want to just sit there watching people just sit around and be like, hey, did you send that fax? I really need you to send that fax. Because this is an older show, so they probably had fax machines. Did you make that call um to your boss? He wanted to. Yeah, I don't really get how a show about nothing is a show about anything. Hmm. But anyway. Hmm. You know, a lot of VTubers are, depending on how you look at it, isekai or reverse isekai people. I mean, look at the new characters from Socks. You got you got the Malfina, bleh, and she's from hell or something like that. And now she's here. So she, from her point of view, got isekai'd, even if she did it by choice. Whereas to us, it's a reverse isekai. And the little Y2K bug, the teeny tiny cutie pie. I mean, she was born in a computer, so in the she it might be an isekai, it might not, depending, because I would need to see a little bit more of her lore to kind of make a solid determination. Because seeing an hour isn't enough for me to get a full decision on yet, especially since I did have to miss part of it. And male VTuber, he escaped from a science lab. The science lab is on Earth, so no, male VTuber is not an isekai person. So yeah, they had one isekaiist, one potential isekaiist, and one non-isekaiist. Now, technically, based on the meaning of the word, I think Superman would count as an isekai character, but Superman doesn't follow the typical tropes because normally you're summoned to the other world. It's not like hopping on a it's not something like hopping on a spaceship, because otherwise, like, every sci-fi show would be isekai, and I think the moment that you just drive there, it's no longer an isekai because it's just normal travel. I mean, sure, it's like sci-fi travel, but I am not going to label Star Wars as an isekai just because all of the humans are not on human planets. I am not going to label Star Trek as an isekai just because the humans are on all those other planets. They are literally just driving there. They're going there of their own accord. So it's no summoning, it's no reincarnation, it's none of that. No, but his parents knew. His parents sent him there specifically. Now, they might not have sent him to Ma and Pa Clark, Kent. Why did I think their last name was Clark for a second? But, yeah. I love what they did for the, trick with, male VTuber. Honestly, I was like, they're not going to do the stereotypical thing. They're not going to have the body type they're showing. So I was actually thinking he was either going to be a dwarf, short little guy with all that big beard, or a gnome, kind of like a permanent chibi guy. Yeah. I was definitely wrong, but I was right that they didn't, do the actual trope. I mean, they did stick with the outlines. You know, actually, no. That wouldn't work. For a second, I was like, wait, would Harry Potter count? Because magical world versus non magical world. But no, they're both the same world. You know? So, yeah. I mean, just because one part of the world is secret doesn't mean it's a different world. Kind of like that, oh great, I don't know the name of that anime anymore, but it's the one where, like, the children are raised in an orphanage in order to be food for the demons or whatever. It's the same world, it just got kind of divided in half. So yeah, because if it's the same world but it's dramatically different parts of it, I'm not going to count that as an isekai personally. At best, it might be isekai adjacent. At best. Because if you go to Antarctica, it might seem like a different world, but it is not a different world. You know, some of those, like, guest characters and things, I mean, obviously, Fortnite would be like the biggest reverse isekai game ever. They got their generic characters, but then they got so many characters from so many shows, movies, comics, manga, that they are just like one of the biggest reverse isekai video games. I mean, they got Avatar the Last Airbender, they got um In- Invincible, they got Dragon Ball Z, they got so many things, and it's just one giant reverse isekai video game at this point. Mhm. Yeah, they got so much. So, yeah, it's kind of. Hmm. You know what? No, I was about to say another movie, but I don't think it counts. I was about to say the Lego movie, but The world is just the Lego world. All of those different Legos are all from the world of Lego. So even though they have Michelangelo, the Ninja Turtle, Michelangelo, the artist, Superman, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, all those basketball people, and whatnot, it's all the Lego world. So it's not an isekai. Everything is Lego. Now, if they randomly had, I don't know, a little, I don't know, like McDonald's toys or something show up in the Lego thing, that would be an isekai. But no, I thought for a second that it might be, but the Lego movie is not an isekai. I mean, it feels like it could be, but it's not. It's just not at all. And a lot of like crossover episodes of things, depending on how you look at it, could be isekai, but at the same time, like, okay, I'm not a big fan of either of these shows, but I don't hate them either. They're just kind of eh. But um the episode where the Family Guy went to the Simpsons, and you know that in both of their own worlds, they're not the same world because they've both gone all over their own worlds. And the Family Guy people look like Family Guy people, the Simpsons people look like Simpsons people. So the Family Guy people had to go to the Simpsons world. So they isekai'd. Or they did like a world smashed together for one episode, which is a weird way because, instead of going from one world to another, they like temporarily instead just, collide with each other and become like a Venn diagram planetarily speaking. And what's going on just takes place in this little bit here in the middle, while everything else stays untouched. Mm-hmm. But yeah. You know what? I think I've really said about all I can think about isekais right now. I mean, that was a lot of ramblings. And yeah, let's see, is anyone I know doing anything related to isekai? You know what? Digimon, like I said, is a two-way is a two-way isekai. So we're gonna raid into Bolt the Mechanic, and I'm gonna write up a quick raid message. Aquirena, enjoy playing your isekai game. Now, like always, I'm using the heart emote. So if you don't have that emote, you can unlock it for 400 points. You can buy a sub, or you could try the 250 random one instead and just hope for the best. But anyway, everyone, thank you for coming. Take care. Stay safe. Have a wonderful night. And I hope to see you all again real soon. All right? Take care. Bye.